Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at all of the new Curse of Osiris exotics that came out, sort of tacking onto the tier list we did a little while ago, and updating the entirety of the tier list. You can check the description for specific exotics if you want, along with a whole bunch of other timestamps. Titans, we're going to start with you. Helm of Saint-14 has made its return, giving the same effect that it did in Destiny 1, where enemies within your Ward of Dawn are blinded. And here's a new thing, when you guard near enemies, they are blinded as well. In order to blind targets, you need to activate the guard next to the target. You cannot guard and then walk up to something, which is kind of lame in my opinion, and the blind effect doesn't even last a very long time. If the blind was an aura-like effect, I think it would be way better for PvE and could provide some pretty interesting PvP moments for teams. The exotic perk itself and the functionality is very good. It does what it says that it does. But the practicality of actually using Ward of Dawn in effective ways is incredibly low. We've discussed this in another video. We've lasted this long without needing Ward of Dawn blinding bubbles, and we will certainly continue to last without it. The thing that will give this helm power is it just straight up getting a buff, or having more situations being developed for the game that promote the use of Ward of Dawn, and not only that, but promote it in a way where enemies will go into your Ward of Dawn often. Prestige Mode Argos might be the first time where Ward of Dawn proves itself very useful. We'll find out. The Mark 44 stand-asides have also made their return with a revamped set of perks. You gain an overshield when sprinting at full health when you're using one of the melee abilities that does a dash move, so Seismic Strike, Hammer Strike, or Shield Bash, and hits with any said ability restore a portion of melee energy. The portion is half, which is pretty good. That's a considerable chunk of energy, and that's half of the cooldown itself, not half of what's remaining. The Overshield perk is way too weak. It has very specific conditions it needs to reach in order for it to give you the effect. Your melee needs to be charged, and you need to be at full health. The shield takes a full 6 seconds to charge up to full. It's not instant, and half of an Overshield versus anything actually lethal is worthless. If you stop sprinting, the shield immediately goes away. The moment you hit your target, the shield goes away. The shield is also not like the Juggernaut shield from Destiny 1, it is strictly an overshield. The fantasy is that you're sprinting at a target, keeping yourself protected enough to actually be able to do so. But if you know you're going to be putting yourself in danger, you'll probably just not go through with the attack and run for cover, especially since you need to sprint for so long to be at full shield. The amount of times the shield is actually going to be crucial in your survival, thus warranting the shield in the first place, probably not that high. If you are going to use this for the melee energy gains. Don't really think about the shield. Any of the many ideas for buffs that I might have or you might have for the shield would probably result in some PvP imbalances. Khepri's Horn is a new exotic which makes you look like a hideous monster and provides the following effect. Solar damage kills recharge your barricade, which unleashes a blast of solar energy when summoned. The solar energy blast is essentially one wave of a thermite grenade shot out from the middle of the barricade. Solar kills do not immediately refresh the barricade. It'll take a few kills, but it is any solar damage source, which is nice, I suppose. It means it's subclass neutral. Typically with your barrier, you're using it pretty strategically. It's not something you're really trying to spam a whole lot. Now, I suppose that since you'll have your barrier more often, you can spam it more often, but I've never really had the desire to spam a lot of Titan walls, like ever. The actual damage from said wall isn't anything outstanding either. You really need to drop it very precisely in order to get a lot of damage out of it and have the wave hit multiple times on one enemy. Good news for Sunbreakers is that it does create a sunspot on kill. But if the damage from the wall was a little more threatening, I would like this exotic way more. I get what the fantasy is supposed to be. I just don't think it's strong enough. Hunters, moving to you, Graviton Forfeit, one of the best looking exotics in the game, is back, but there's no Shade Step anymore. So we have the next closest thing affected. Invisibility effects are increased in duration, and you regen melee energy faster while invisible. Vanish and Smoke duration is increased 2 seconds. Your Invis via dodging is increased by 1 second, and Rat King Invis is increased by 2 seconds. On console, I haven't used this on console, I haven't played on console in a while, but on console, I can imagine this being somewhat almost game-breaking, seeing as Invis on console is about as close as you'll get to turning on God mode in Destiny, at least in PvP, but on PC, Invis is nothing crazy. Smoke grenades are very strong in PvP, so getting energy back faster is nice, but considering hunters have an ability to get their melee back simply by being near someone when they dodge, and the cooldown of that ability isn't very long, Graviton just seems like overkill in terms of the energy production. From a PvE standpoint, you rarely need to be invisible for very long either, you just need it for a couple of seconds to escape. And if I'm using a defensive exotic in PvE, it's probably not even this, it's probably going to be Gemini Jester. Shinobu's Vow, one of Destiny 1's more infamous exotics, is back with basically the same effects. Improved skip grenade, and you get another grenade. In Destiny 1, skip grenades, after they were beefed up a little bit and after the release of these gloves, were incredibly deadly. They could be thrown from any direction, had relentless tracking, and did a lot of damage, almost outright killing targets at times, and sometimes they did for unknown reasons. In Destiny 2, you're not really seeing skip grenades too much because you're not really seeing Arc Striders too much in PvP. Arc Bolt is much more popular for its reliability and wide area of effect scan, and since skip grenades don't absolutely destroy people anymore, their value has gone down. Skip grenades aren't fantastic in PvE either, and until something can dethrone Celestial Nighthawk, Raiden Flux, or Orpheus Rig, those are going to stay the best options. Not to mention that regeneration of grenade energy when you have 2 of them got nerfed recently. Gemini Jester is a new Destiny 2 exotic where dodging near enemies disorients them and removes the minimap for a short time. In PvE, the duration of this disorient is a couple of seconds, which gives you enough time to get out of a jam, especially if you're using any invisibility effects, although you probably don't need the invisibility effect with these boots. But being able to blind a crowd of enemies every 20 seconds or so is actually a pretty strong effect, even if it is defensive. In PvP, while I haven't played with it on console, it, combined with any sort of invisibility build, seems like it would be absolutely insane and very obnoxious to fight against in 1v1 situations when you can actually get them to happen. In group play, being able to remove the radar of a couple of people is incredibly useful in more intimate situations like trials. The radius of the effect isn't huge, but it is larger than you would think. You can actually see if the effect triggers because it does 1 damage to any targets in order to apply the debuff, which is nice, although sometimes I don't know if I won a gunfight because the other person just wasn't ready because they didn't have their radar, or if I was a better shot or what. I don't think these will end up replacing Orpheus Rig or anything like that in PvE, but for PvP, these are a solid pick. Warlocks, we're on to you. The Stag returns, and it's back with another requires you to die in order to do something perk, although I guess it's only half of it. You gain Rift energy when critically wounded, and when you die, you drop a brief healing rift where you died. The Rift energy gained when being critically wounded is 50% of the total cooldown of your Rift, approximately. It works the same way that the Mark 44 stand-asides do. So if you're at 25% Rift cooldown, you'll go to 75, etc., etc. This helm is pretty great in PvP, not gonna lie. The amount of times you're critically wounded in PvP is a lot, and most of the time, you are going to be critically wounded if you lose a fight, which means nearly every time you die, you're getting a huge chunk of energy. You can have your Rift for every other fight it comes up that often. I usually don't spam my Rift at all in PvP, but knowing that I'll get it back so often, I now have no problems dropping it wherever, whenever. In PvE, you're probably getting wounded a fairly good amount of the time as well, but PvE doesn't warrant the spammability of a Rift as much as it does in PvP. At least I don't think so. If you think it's warranted, then by all means use it, because it is pretty darn nice. Ophidian Aspect, a Destiny 1 favorite, is back and is somehow better than it was in Destiny 1. And this was one of the best Destiny 1 exotics in the game. Weapons ready and reload very quickly, and melee range is extended. Yeah, in case the ready and reload speeds weren't enough of a reason to grab these for PvP, now you get extended melee range too, which is a premium perk. I don't really know what else to say about these gloves. They even help in PvE as well, as faster reloads technically increase your damage, and considering how weak the selection of quality endgame exotics is for Warlocks, I wouldn't be surprised if you just never took these off, ever. They're really, really good. Vesper of Radius, a new Warlock exotic, has the following bonuses. Rifts release an arc shockwave when cast, and you gain rift energy faster when surrounded by enemies. The arc shockwave damage is nothing special at all. It's more about the knockback effect, which isn't insane either, but it'll get things away from you, which is the objective of the bonus. You're primarily going to be using this for the rift energy gains when surrounded. Surrounded is 3 or more enemies. Now, when surrounded by 3 enemies, you get your rift back pretty darn fast. And the rift energy gains seem to scale with how many enemies are around you. For example, with more than 3 enemies around me, look how fast the rift comes back. It's pretty crazy. So, the strength of these robes are going to depend on how often you can surround yourself with enemies, but then also not die as a result. Because there's not really many times where you want to surround yourself with enemies and then not kill them. The radius of the effect is small, so things do need to be pretty close as well. I'm kind of 50-50 on this one. The Aeon series is a set of gloves for all classes that get you back energy Rat King style, where the more people who stack when an action is performed, the more energy is returned to players. This is something we'll tackle in another video, but the fact that Titans and Hunters get class ability energy and Warlocks get grenade energy basically means that I'll never wear these unless most of my group consists of Warlocks, or my entire raid group is wearing them and I'm a Warlock or something like that. That about covers all of the Curse of Osiris exotic armor pieces. Some good, some not so good. As for any updates in the old tier list, I have made some slight personal adjustments, but only 2 exotics got adjusted enough, in my opinion, to be moved anywhere via nerfs and buffs, and those are Lucky Pants and Karnstein Armlets. Lucky Pants now add a bullet to your stowed hand cannon whenever you get a precision hit. Hit, not even kill. This is a very significant buff compared to what it used to be, and therefore it gets a bump up the list. Precision hits still have issues with explosive round-based exotics, which sucks for you Better Devils or Sunshot users, and it's not really good enough to topple the top PvE Hunter exotics, but Lucky Pants are way better. Karnstein Armlets are going down with their changes. Melee hits give increased resilience and mobility, aka things we don't really care about, and melee kills give a large chunk of health. Pretty safe to say that these got hit kinda hard by the nerf stick, where only melee kills really matter now, but if you're gonna run with any sort of melee kill based stuff, Winter's Guile and Devour, probably a better idea. That's gonna do it for the Curse of Osiris exotic armor tier list update. If you enjoyed this video, a positive rating is appreciated. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.